So not your typical pharmacy technician position. So it's advice on atypical positions and then navigating HR. HR seems to be maybe a roadblock to, not only advancing, but just maybe reorganizing and relabeling positions. I'm not going to read through this, but this was on the website. It's on your, you can take a look at it too. It's a description of the topic to get you interested in it. So recognize skill development and certifications needed for unique roles. So there's more certifications, as many of you probably know, than the certified pharmacy technician. There are other specialty certifications that add the credentials to your name. You can get that really long name on your signature line. Describe how to advance your career outside the traditional pharmacy technician roles, and then just some insights for navigating HR. So what I'd like to do is have the panelists pass around the microphone and go ahead and introduce yourselves and just talk a little bit about what puts you here today.
All right, I'll start.
Yes, I think you guys can hear it, can't you? Okay.
Fred Shackelford. And first I'll make a note that for our 50/50, we're up to over $100. So we will pick a ticket late tomorrow. So you have lots of time still to, I guess, do that. No. Oh, well, it depends on how much. You get half of whatever we have. Right? No, we have 100. Oh, does that work better? Okay. Okay. Anyway, I am from Southern California area, and I've been to technician for over 45 years. How detailed are we getting here, Judy? Just basically about us, is that right?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Kind of your background. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I am one of those people that happened to fall into the position. I was doing some per diem work for a real estate lady, cleaning up houses and things like that. And she happened to be a pharmacist, and her pharmacist's husband was looking for somebody to work in the hospital pharmacy. And so she recommended me, and I got the job there, and then was fortunate enough to be able to move up through the years into a leadership management type of position.
Let me interject real quick too. So we wanted to get a blend of panelists, and Fred is labeled our industry leader. Well, because he's a leader in this association, but we didn't talk about it. He is one of the original founders of this association. So when this whole thing started, he was one of the founders. Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, Ashley.
Okay, I'm next, I guess. So I'm Ashley Lee. Historically, I've been a pharmacy technician, and very similarly, I fell into the role, not intending to. I was at a Walgreens, and they were short, and they roped you in, and then the rest is history. So I started there and quickly learned that I liked the medical field, but I, wanted to have a bigger impact. I enjoyed working, rejections from insurance and investigating those. But the ones that really got me were the people who couldn't pay for their Eliquis or facing those barriers. And if you think there's barriers there, I was like, I'll go into specialty pharmacy. Well, there's a ton of barriers there, especially financial. And so I worked in a specialty pharmacy for a while and wanted to have more, hands-on patient experience. So I went into an embedded clinic. So where they have pharmacy coordinators, and it's a duad usually with a technician and a clinical pharmacist in the clinic with the docs. And so I was embedded in a med-onc clinic, and then kind of helped create a supervisor position. So that's why I'm here. I was led other technicians in that same role. So I get to be your HR specialist, but especially want to let you know that there are non-traditional roles for sure, and you just kind of have to scour.
Hi, I'm still Dimitrios Papadopoulos. That's my mug up there. I've been a technician almost 20 years. I started as a small independent pharmacy in Florida that got bought out by a big chain. So I did the big chain, which was CVS, for 8 years. I transferred into a closed door pharmacy, which was the Department of Corrections. I worked at the prison system in the pharmacy there. So that's kind of a non-typical pharmacy that people might not realize is there. I then got into some compounding, some sterile compounding, doing home health care, IV technician work. Then we moved to Vegas and I did children's oncology. I did that for 2.5 years. Got a lot of experience doing that. Throughout my career, I also did a pharmacy that was in a mental psych facility. We also had a Suboxone clinic attached to that. So that's kind of another non-typical pharmacy role that I did. And now I am a research pharmacy technician. We do late phase and early trial medications, a lot of first in human studies, and that's where I'm at now.
I am Becky Roetman. I've been in pharmacy for 20 years. This is my 20th year. I graduated in 2005. So I purposely went into pharmacy. So I'm from Nebraska, and I didn't know that back in 2005 that you didn't have to go to school for it. So I signed up for a class and took it. Paid lots of money. Stupid. But so the reason that I chose to do it though was because I was a CNA, then I became a med aid. I was working at an Alzheimer's facility where I was trying to coax people into taking their medications and they would spit them out at me. And I decided, you know what, like I want to get into dispensing. That way, if they want to take it, they can take it. And if they don't, it's not my problem. So, it is my problem. But so after I graduated a pharmacy tech program, I went to Walgreens, did the whole retail thing for a while. Then I went to inpatient pharmacy where I learned how to make IV. I really enjoyed that. I left there because I was bamboozled into thinking a salary position was the way to go. And so I went to work for an insurance company, doing prior authorizations and that kind of thing. I left there, went to specialty pharmacy, that got bought out. So I left and went to an oncology place where I started as just their entry-level technician. And then I became a lead at one of their clinics. And then from there, I still wanted growth and they didn't have anything at the time. So I went to my manager. He said, tell our board what you think we need. And so I said, you don't have anybody that does inventory. So they created the role and I was doing inventory. I still want more. I always want more. So I left there. I'm currently at Nebraska Medicine in a position that's brand new. I do clinic embedded. So I'm the only technician for 27 pharmacists. So I keep very busy. I do like it. We're all the clinics throughout Omaha area. So, but since it's a new role, like they were like, okay, all we know that we want you to do is call like our anticoagulation patients and ask them if they did their INR. And I was like, but I'm capable of doing so much more. And so we've just grown that over the last year into a lot. So But so we do diabetes, HIV prep, anticoagulation, smoking cessation, and hypertension.
Okay. So we sent out, when we knew about our panel discussion, we sent out an email to all the folks who registered, and we had a couple of winners of questions. So you guys are welcome to come sit in front row if you want, but you don't have to. That's one of the ways we tried to, get some questions submitted. So okay, so I think we already talked about what we have on this slide, the non-traditional job. And then how did you evolve in your career? So are there any of you that want to talk more about your evolution to where you are now, or do you feel like you already covered that?
I can just comment. Okay, go ahead.
I just want to comment on my my title, which when I left was technical support manager. I've had very supportive head pharmacists through the years, and I had kind of grown up and become the chief technician, and that just didn't feel to me like it fit everything that I was doing. And so at some of our early conventions, I started talking to other people about what they were doing and what their titles were. And one of them said, well, at my huge hospital, I am considered the technical support manager. And so I glommed onto that idea, took it back to my boss. And my boss said, sounds good. Let's go through HR. Let's get that set up. So we were able to do that. And for the people that I knew in the Southern California area, I was the only one that was considered a manager as a technician in a pharmacy. So I just wanted to encourage all of you to get involved in talking to everybody. And there's always something that you can learn from someone else that's going to help you in your career ladder and what you do.
Okay. Yeah, I did, but I forgot. I guess my evolution was starting by looking. I feel like there's so many opportunities out there, and if you just kind of get pigeonholed into what you're doing and you're not looking for them opportunities, you're not going to find them. I can say with 100% certainty, I am on all the job boards pretty regularly to see what the pay is, to see what opportunities are out there, to see what advancement opportunities are. And I think that has a lot to do with my personal evolution and like transferring to different positions is by taking the first step into looking for them positions.
I honestly, I think it takes a lot of courage, to walk up to your boss, or in my case, like what I did when I thought about the inventory position. Ultimately, I titled and emailed, it was called Shooting My Shot. And I was kind of like, take me and like find me something else. Otherwise I'm moving along, kind of a thing, and like, I didn't want to do that because like I really cared about the company, but in the same sense, like he didn't know I wanted more unless I told him, and he didn't know I was serious unless he was like, if you can come up with, a handful of things that I can take to the board, and that's what I did. So you have to have courage. You have to, know that you might fail, but you know what? That might not be the right company for you either. And there's also something to be said too. Like, I think about when my dad says, he'll be like, you're changing your job again. You're going somewhere else again. My dad was at the same company for 40 some years, I don't know. And I think over the last 20 years, I mean, I've been at what, 5 companies, 6 companies. And it's not that I'm not loyal to them, but like I have to look out for myself too. And so like every single place that I went, like I've made a step up, and it was because the person or the people I was working for couldn't do that. And so like now I'm at Nebraska Medicine, where like I feel like I'm in a system. I can continue to move up. I have managers that listen, you know, and so you just have to kind of find your place.
So I think that really segues us into the next one about pursuing. Becky talked about how she pursued. So you guys want to share how you pursue your non-traditional roles, like what steps, how you would maybe share your advice?
Yeah, I think Becky makes a really good point. Like, you have to advocate for yourself, because if you don't, no one's going to do it for you, right? I think you learn that. And I don't know about other people, but when I was in a retail pharmacy, I was very young, right? And I'm like, this is a chain. They, you know, what they say is my salary and my responsibilities is what it is, and there's no changing it. And that is not necessarily true. Like, if you're a high performer and you want more out of your career, like you have to use those words and tell them, like, I'm interested in doing this, or maybe I found a different opportunity that is like something that's going to satisfy my goals. And if you're a high performer and a hard worker, like there is wiggle room for them to kind of help grow your career. And I don't know if you guys have, you know, watched Ted Lasso. Any fans? No? But like most leaders who are supporting you know you will move on eventually, right? And they want you to succeed and fulfill your dream. So like you want to have those mentors if they're not at your current role, like networking or friends or, you know, people that you know, like to help promote you and lift you up to find those roles, I think is really important.
I agree with that. One of the things that I would tell my technicians when they talked about there wasn't anything else they could do, there was no way for them to advance, would be to watch other people, especially people who are doing more than you're doing. Learn from them, study what you can do in order to improve yourself, and then self-promote yourself. So self-promote yourself?
Yeah, I like that.
Self-promote. Basically, I felt like this was a way to help them improve and learn what they could do, and might be going somewhere else, because there probably wasn't a lot of potential movement within our group. We did have at one time 4 different levels, technician levels, so they could move up through those levels, but they did have to show that they were worthwhile for that, and so that was one of the things that I tried to do to help them.
For me, I agree with what has been said already. Also, just learn as much as you can. If you're in a hospital and you are an IV technician, learn rounding, learn, you know, the automated system, because you don't necessarily know when them skills will be beneficial to you. You may not think that you're gonna leave the job you're at or leave the position that you're at. But what if you move and you have to? Them other areas that you have learned will come in handy. Also, I have realized, don't burn your bridges. I know that sounds really terrible, but don't burn your bridges, especially in pharmacy. We're such a small knit community. You make one person mad, or if you know you have screwed the pooch on one time, you get blacklisted almost, and it gets harder for you to get them positions that are for advancement or other opportunities that pay more, or another, hospital in the same system that is looking for a lead technician or other things. So try not to burn your bridges. Learn as much as you can in different areas.
I've always been one, I like to know the why behind everything. So I'm one that, even if I have a trainer, that's like, this is how you do this is how you do this. And I ask why. And I feel it's really funny sometimes when they don't know why. And you're like, I don't know, we've just always done it this way. And so if that person doesn't know, there's somebody out there that does. So ask them. Like, in the role that I have right now, there's nobody for me to ask because there's nobody else that does my job. So I'm constantly like, going to my supervisor or whatever. And I say, I know these guys over here are working on processing these claims. Like, I know that's not something that I'm doing, but like, can I watch them do it? Can I know what they're doing? So that way, I understand it. So like, that's my biggest thing, is understanding the big picture of things. So like, think beyond just what your tasks are. And people value that as a team. And so when you bring other suggestions out, they really appreciate that.
Okay, let's kind of flip a little bit over to a different kind of category, and that's about skill sets. So if each of you want to talk about what you think would be the skill sets to develop in order to get into non-traditional, so more than counting by fives. So yeah, skill sets.
Okay, yeah. I think this is a nice segue because I think, you need to be able to multitask. You want to be curious about different, tasks you're doing. Or for me, I like to know how things work, and I'm like very clinically driven, right? So in my previous role, I was in a specialty pharmacy, and the different pharmacies had different disease states that they specialized in. So we were hepatitis C, mostly, with some HIV sprinkled in there. So getting these prior authorizations approved for Hep C and navigating funding, like I just branched out beyond what my duties say, right? Like I think a lot of people, not us because we're all awesome, but like some people are like, that's not my job, right? Like, so I'm not going to do that. But I think if you go beyond that and you're constantly going above and beyond, like how do you do that? Like, teach me more about that. So how can I help you take something off your plate? And then you're kind of like sharing the burden, right? Like if someone's really busy, then you're cross-trained and you can help them do something. So being curious, always being willing to go above and beyond, because that's only going to they're going to appreciate your help, right? And it really looks good for you too. And then you know more than you need to. So you're always a high performer.
Hard to beat that. I approached it a little bit differently. I think that some of the things that are really helpful in getting to something new is to be assertive and to be caring, and be able to show those to the bosses that you have, the people in charge. I think in working with your coworkers, being patient is a very important thing. Being creative and kind of like Becky said, knowing how to do different things, thinking in terms of asking the why, to thinking in terms of how things could be done a little bit better, thinking outside the box in that way. And I think all of those things were very helpful for me, and I tried to stress those with others as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. My three were be able to sell yourself. If you're gonna go to management, if you're gonna go to leadership, be able to back up what you say. In hand with that, you're not going to get too many places if you don't excel in what you do. If you're just kind of going through the motions and you're just kind of there for a paycheck, or you're just there to slap the label on the bottle, you're just not going to get them advancements. And when you apply to other jobs, you got to sell yourself. And for me personally, that's super hard because I feel like I'm the workhorse, I'm just, I just am doing it. I'm just doing it. I'm just doing it. And, like sometimes I don't know if people have applied for other jobs, one of the things they say is, what have you accomplished? Or what award have you made? Well, none, but I've been a technician 20 years. Isn't that enough? Well, I know. But I mean, you got to be able to present yourself in the way that if a position isn't there and you see a need, you got to be able to back yourself up with that excellence that you do and be able to sell yourself to be able to get that position or promotion or raise or whatever you're looking for. Because if you're just going to go through and just get lost in the shuffle, you're probably not going to get them jobs.
Yeah, mine, obviously the traditional skill sets that you need, you have to know how to multitask if you're a pharmacy technician. I mean, obviously that it just wouldn't work, and prioritization and time management and that kind of thing. But I think to really like be able to stand out and think about doing things that aren't the traditional sense, you really have to be able to adapt, and be able to accept criticism and critiquing, and you have to be in that uncomfortable level of knowing that there are people out there that, whether it be possibly jealousy or what have it. I mean, how many of you maybe got a lead position over somebody else and then all of a sudden, yeah, they're like, whoa, wait, who do you think you are? But you have to be, you have to stand up for yourself and you have to know what you're capable of. So, yeah.
Wonderful. So I think what I'd like to do is just have a stopping point to see if any of you have questions or feedback about what the panel has talked about so far about skill set or about, kind of moving into a non-traditional role. And then we're going to start talking about challenges. So if you have any kind of questions about challenges in getting there, we can share those too. And panel, if you could just repeat the questions that come in. Questions? Okay. We'll keep going then. Do we have one? Sorry, go ahead.
Done that before, or looking at doing that, that's one of the hardest things it is, right? So, what the panel can offer is some guidance on that, if you look at the role. My current role is some background. I've had a non-traditional kind of path myself, like and currently, I'm recruiting currently that we oversee not only people but processes and forms. And one of the questions I asked on the interview is, how do you foresee the transition of going here, going from here to now your peers being reported? Big shift. A lot of them aren't their peers. Like they say, well, I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't know my goals yet. And everything that you would need to be a leader puts you at that age. So everything that you learn over years, like every characteristic you requires, has made you into that person. So what if I only give both fear the transition. So years of leadership, it definitely.
Thank you.
I totally agree, like going from a peer to a supervisor of your peers can be definitely difficult. I think something that I like to keep in mind with that is like, it's only going to be as awkward as you guys make it, right? So if you kind of just like acknowledge the elephant in the room when you're talking to them, be like, I know it might be a little bit awkward. Like, we've done this together. Like, how can we do this better together? I think is really important. And then also, oh, my thought just left. Oh, just like you're always a student in life. Like, you're not going to know the best way to do everything. So acknowledging like, okay, these are my ideas. Like, what do you think of that? Just because you're the supervisor, you don't have to think you know everything, right? You can always take someone else's perspective and, you know, be like, this person thought of this. I think it's a great idea. I think we should try it out. If you have an idea and maybe it sucks, like you fall on your sword and you try again, you know, so you're not, just because you're supervising doesn't mean that you're like leading with an iron fist. Like, you still learn from your fellow employees and your peers, and you all grow together as a team, right? Because your team's only going to be as good as you allow them to, so you don't want to constrain anyone.
So it sounds like we all agree that a challenge could be, how does your team work with you if you get the advancement? And that's one of the things that Fred has for his challenge, non-supportive. So do you guys want to kind of go through maybe anticipated challenges and how to turn those into opportunities?
All right, we'll see if I can. I will comment that when I first became the lead technician, the person before me just decided that she did not want to do this anymore. And so she just wanted to step down to a regular technician position. And the obvious person to take that position said, no, I don't want it. Have Fred do it. And so I kind of said, sure, I'll try anything. But I had her support already. And so my peers all looked at that and said, okay, well, if she thinks he's okay, then he should be okay. So that was very helpful. But yeah, one of the issues really that you can run into is non-supportive technicians and pharmacists. And I've had plenty of those over the years. Not that I think that they wanted the position, they just didn't necessarily like me in the position. I was at the same place for 45 years. And during that time, I only had 2 bosses. So that was helpful for me. But what I found was that as long as I stuck to my guns, did what I was supposed to do, treated people well, that eventually people stopped bugging me or they moved on somewhere else and then, or retired or whatever. And so by the time I'd been there for 30 years, almost everybody there were people who had come after I'd become the lead and then eventually the chief tech and manager. So those were, I don't know if that really helps in terms of how to do that, but that's some of my experiences that seem to work well. Another thing that is always difficult, I think for most people, is your time management. It's easy to get caught up when one person comes to you with an issue and takes up a whole lot of time when the issue is not really as critical as they think it is. So a lot of that is figuring out that time management, satisfying your staff and satisfying your leadership. Noting that others are not as dedicated as you are and being able to deal with that, deal with the fact that they're not going to put in the effort that you're putting in, regardless of what they think of the whole situation. And then repeat time management. Learning how to multitask, know which things are more important, what has to get done first, second, third, etc.
Good ones. Good ones. My couple were, I had the opportunity to be at a position like you that wasn't there ahead of time. So nobody was in that position before it was made. I applied, I got the job. So the job description says X, Y, Z, A, B, C. And you're like, yeah, that looks great. That's right up my alley. That's awesome. But with new positions, that might not be the direct responsibilities of what is in that job description. A lot of jobs morph into different jobs than when you apply to the job, especially for non-traditional jobs that you're the first. If you're the first, you may expect X, Y, Z. But them X, Y, Zs aren't really what the job entails. And what somebody might in Florida have the same job might not be doing the same exact things that position in Georgia is doing or in Tennessee is doing. So I think you need to be super adaptable into changing what you expect from the job. Also, I think you got to be confident in yourself. You got to know that if you're doing X, Y, and Z, and you can do X, Y, and Z, rest assured with the confidence that you got it. You know it. You can do it. Don't second guess yourself so much. I think in pharmacy, in non-traditional roles that I have been in, that's kind of a mentality where, am I doing enough? Am I doing what's expected? Yeah, you are. And so I think that's been super important for me. Be willing to adapt, change locations. I think that's super important. I think unless you just want to do the slapping of the label, putting the 5 pills in the thing, and that's okay for a lot of people. That's great for certain people, but if you're looking for them different positions, you may have to move. You may have to look at other avenues. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, so my biggest challenge with the current position that I'm in, like I said, they didn't have anybody doing this before. So the first several months, so not only did I go into a position that did not exist before, but I started at a brand new company too. So I walked in there and they're like, so we know we want you to help pharmacists, but with what exactly we don't know. And I was like, well, I know how to do prior authorizations. I know how to, call insurance companies and this and that and everything. They're like, that's great. We have people that do all of that. So you don't have to do any of it. And I was like, okay. So being in the clinic, I've had to, day to day in the clinic is never the same. Just like in a pharmacy, you're never going to have 2 days that are the same. You've got different patients all the time. So now, finally, after I've been there for a whole year, like I've got kind of a routine down to do every day that keeps my days busy. But when I first started, I'm not gonna lie, like I would look at the postings at Nebraska Medicine, or I would look at the emails that would go out that says, our outpatient pharmacy is short 5 technicians. like for one shift. And I was like, Kenise, which is my manager, I'm like, I know how to do this stuff. I was like, and she's like, please just stick it out. She's like, I know, just stick it out. And I'm very glad that I did. But starting like at Walgreens and stuff like that, you kind of learn that, like you follow something from the beginning to the end, right? Like if you enter a prescription and you run into a roadblock with the insurance, you're likely the one that's calling the insurance, doing all this stuff, whatever. So I have had to take a step back and have faith in all of the other technicians in all those other departments and know that if I have a patient that calls me that says, hey, I have a prescription that's not going through, I have to trust that the other technicians that are in those positions are going to follow through, and they do. They're great, but it's really hard starting new positions, like just kind of finding your boundaries and keeping yourself busy, but give it a chance.
Thank you. So I know we are getting to the end of the day, and these next points are really what's intended for Ashley to kind of contribute with as far as the HR. So maybe Ashley, if I go through these and you kind of just summarize some of these points, and then we have a couple of questions that were submitted and we can get to those.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, that sounds great. Okay, so our first one is standing out in the application process. And I guess, first of all of these are available online for everybody, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so my main points, I guess I would suggest here, is, so you want to thoroughly read the posting, right? The job posting, and then you can wordsmith your resume to fit, you have the abilities, right? You've done the job, but tailoring it to exactly what they're looking for. I'm not saying go on there and say you can ride a horse if you can't, or something like that. Just tailor your specific examples to fit what they're looking for. So that means, maybe you're the ones that you're really wanting, you're not just firing off resumes that aren't matching what they're looking for. Because if they say, they want this quality and it's not on there, they might just pass you right over when you might actually have the experience to fit it. So you might just need to tailor it a little bit. A big one for me as a supervisor is proofreading for spelling and grammatical errors. Sometimes those things you can overlook them, but if it's something like glaringly, like just proofread it, have someone else read it for you. That's a big thing for me. And highlighting your successes. Might not even be something related to your job, but maybe you volunteer outside of your position, like you serve on a panel or you serve like at a women's shelter or something. Like those things, they read into those to see what your qualities are outside of just the work, right? I think I put other things up there, but those are my big ones.
Okay. Thank you.
The hiring procedure, pretty typical, submitting your application. You might have a phone screen with a recruiter and maybe a hiring manager. You might have panel interviews or team interviews. And then reference check, background checks, those are all pretty typical. Navigating HR, I would say be prepared and put your best foot forward. I really liked what you said about not burning bridges. I think that's huge, especially in pharmacy. It is a very small community, like everyone, like guaranteed someone here, like the 7, what is that called? Something of Kevin Bacon, 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, like everybody knows somebody. So that is huge. I would say follow up and thank the team. Everyone always says that, but do it. And every interview and interaction that you have is really an opportunity. Like there, to me, is no such thing as a bad interview. I just got a new job and I've had a bunch of interviews, I would say, in the last year or so. And no matter what, you might not be the right person, and that's okay. Because but you can take examples like, what could I have done better in your opinion? Everything is a learning opportunity. So you don't have to come back with any ego or attitude or anything, accept that and be like, I thank you so much for your time. Like, what could I have done better? Or like, what qualities are you looking for that maybe I didn't fulfill? Or what experiences might have better prepared me for this job? And with not burning bridges also goes along with not bad mouthing your current or previous employers. Because again, they might know them. It also doesn't make you look great. For me, if maybe your current employer is like just not your cup of tea, I'm looking for more growth opportunity is always a good answer. Just put that in your bank. I'm looking for growth.
That's a good tip. Let's move ahead. I think that this is probably something everybody wants to know. Tips to negotiate compensation. What kind of tips do you have, Ashley?
Yes. Okay. I would highlight any certification or advanced practice things that you might have. So if you're an advanced technician, like with PTCB, you took all those other courses, like highlight those. If you have any certifications, like maybe when I was getting my bachelor's degree and I took, what was that class called? I got a bunch of OSHA and like FEMA certifications. I put those on my resume because they're all these extra educational portions you have. I'm also a leader for a Muay Thai gym. I'm on the leadership committee. I highlight those things because those are all things that give a full picture of who I am. So that's first and foremost. Show your years of experience. Maybe you have a gap. Like maybe you were a technician from like 2000 to 2005, but then you went and did something else. Still show that. Like, don't just get like held up on your most recent 3. If your technician career goes back 20 years, show that longevity because a lot of places, especially the organization I worked with, when they're calculating their compensation, they're going to calculate the entirety of your technician career. So maybe you've only most recently been a technician for 10 years, but overall you started 30 years ago. Show that longevity because that is going to make a difference in what they offer you. Don't be afraid to negotiate. Again, like what I said before is like you have to advocate for yourself because someone else isn't going to do it for you. And if I'm the hiring manager and I offer you $20 an hour, knowing that, I could pay you 25, but if you're going to take 20, I'll pay you 20. So don't be afraid, which is kind of crummy, right? But that's like, it's a business, right? So they're going to pay you less if you'll take it. So don't be afraid to negotiate and be like, the posting said the range is from 20 to 30. I have 20 years of experience. I have all these other certifications. I have really great experience in these different areas. And my expectation was this amount. The worst thing they can say is no, right? I mean, they still offered you the job. So negotiation is there for a reason. So do it. Don't be afraid to ask for more, especially if you want to advance within that organization. In the previous place I was at, if you took a position there and let's say you didn't negotiate your price and then you go for a promotion later, all their promotions were only 5%. So if you had negotiated up front, you would have been making more, and that 5% then is more. So it's going to continue to just bite you if you don't negotiate up front. And then you're really showing you have a backbone, right? I was young and I didn't do that when I first started out. Like you have to have boundaries and know that you respect yourself and that you are capable. And I think they appreciate that.
That's a good point, Ashley, to, whatever you start at, your baseline, your raises are going to build on that. So start at a good baseline. These are some questions that came in. So I invite any of you to answer them. We're going to roll through them very quickly. Okay, so real quick answers for us, but good answers. Are there any common pitfalls or mistakes to avoid in the application? And if so, what are they?
So mine was like the grammar and like spelling. My biggest thing that bugged me was if you're applying and there's like an application process and you're filling out the things online, you leave everything blank and just submit your resume. Take the time to fill it out. That's what it's there for. Anybody?
And for some, organizations, they need it filled out. They
Yeah.
won't even look at it. Okay, let's move on here to compensation. What review process is utilized by HR to determine ranges of salary? And I think you kind of talked about that when you said, they look at the years of service.
Yeah, I think it depends on organization, obviously. My most recent experience, so I'm from Colorado, so I live here. In Colorado, they're required to put the range. Okay, so the job listings have to have the range there listed, so that kind of gives you a good baseline. But my organization, they based it off of years of experience total. And then they would take into account like where you lived, what county for like market adjustments and equity. And then they would base it also off of other people who are doing your same job.
So let me ask you this. Is there a way for someone to research before the interview and before negotiation what that county rate would be? Because I think that that's, there's state rates doing the
Yeah.
same thing. Do you know of any resource to research what that
Not
would
for the
be?
county, no. But like for the company or the organization that I worked for, they had to list the range, like low to high.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll just give you the experience of one of the techs that we hired. We had a new position and she fit everything that we wanted in that position. So we brought her in for the interviews and offered her the position at a certain rate. And she came in and said, no, I want 10% more than that. And our HR really balked at that. But we knew that she was the right person for that position. So my boss went to bat with HR back and forth 2 or 3 weeks. And then finally HR said, okay, we'll do that. So it may take a lot of push and it may take help from whoever it is that's hiring you in order to get that through. But that's something to think about. She was definitely worth it.
Good, nice,
She now works in my position that I had before.
nice. This is a question that came in and I think we'll hold it for tomorrow because we have a presenter. He was here earlier, but he is going to talk about the generations within the work environment. So I think that'll be covered tomorrow. But this one I think is something that we all think about. I'm putting in the money and the time to get advanced certification. Is it worth it? And just you guys give me your opinion if it's worth it and give me your, yep. Give it a
I
shot.
think it's definitely worth it. As I was growing up in pharmacy, there really wasn't a lot of things that we could do, but as soon as there was anything available for in California, and that happened to be with the Pharmacists Association to be a CPhA, I was the first one to get there. I was in that first group that took the first test for that. As soon as PTCB came along, I jumped right into that to make sure that I could get that. I haven't done much else because most of that came toward the end of my career. But I think it's definitely worthwhile.
I'm taking the complete opposite. For me personally, the advanced opportunities, especially for PTCB certification advancements, haven't benefited me in Vegas. I've actually talked to 3 different hiring managers and they said that's a no-go. No extra pay, no extra opportunities, no advancement. And for me, it wasn't beneficial.
We appreciate your honesty. I mean, that's what we're here to hear. And you're not the only guy. You're not. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously education for yourself is always a win. I mean, learning is always great. there's a lot of different factors that go into it. You are going to have places that are going to say, you know, we don't do raises based on just because you have these extra certifications or whatever. So one of the factors is who you're working for, and is it like, do you want to stay at that place bad enough, or do they want you to stay bad enough to keep you? In the sense that, like, if you want to do this education for yourself and you know that you're worth it, then like find somebody that's willing to pay you for it.
So I'm gonna go with Dimitrios. I don't think so. I don't have an advance, the PTCB advance. I would say do it if you have the time to dedicate to it, and if your company will pay for it. Or if you want to pay for it yourself. I didn't want to pay for it myself, and my company wouldn't pay for it. And I got the supervisor position that I helped create in that organization. And then when I left, the person who replaced me also not advanced, and we had probably 4 or 5 that were. So in my experience, not worth it. Oh, well, okay, I thought yeah, that I think is, yeah. Oh,
So maybe, yeah, so maybe advanced degrees, and I think Becky talked about,
Yes.
you know, for your own self-fulfillment. So I want to thank the panelists and